Well, at this time, there's a tendency in the region probably to have more barriers to trade. And the barriers to trade are in two areas. First, higher tariff levels, and also probably more severe implementation of phytosanitary and sanitary barriers in the region as well. These are limitations on trade. They're entirely justified limitations on trade because they're supposed to be to increase food safety. But some of the countries in the region say that they're supposed to increase food security. Now, that is not the FAO position. FAO believes that food self-sufficiency, which is essentially much of what these policies are aimed at, is not a route, not a good route toward increasing food security. In fact, it's been shown many times that policies aimed at food self-sufficiency lead to increasing prices for food in the country. That leads to a drop in people's real incomes, and that decreases food security of the population. Well, by food safety control, I mean the system of surveillance and control of food safety, animal and plant health in the country. Now, this is an extremely necessary issue. Why is this necessary? Because in commerce or in trade, you don't want trade in any old food, right? You want trade in safe food, right? And that's what these regulations are about. They're trying to ensure that there's trade and commerce only in safe food. That increases the trust of the population, of course. And when you have greater trust, people are more willing to trade. People are more willing to buy. Increasing trade, increasing commerce is associated with increasing incomes. Increasing incomes is associated with greater food security. There are two economic unions in the region, and they have different approaches to this issue, to food safety control. In the European Union, you have a very strong supranational authority, the European Commission. Now, the European Commission produces rules and regulations that deal with food safety in the European Union. These are, they have all kinds of advice from all kinds of bodies, the Parliament, all kinds of other institutions, civil society, etc. But generally, these regulations, they come down to the country authorities, to the country food safety authorities. Okay, it's very similar in the Eurasian Economic Union. You have a central body which is called the Eurasian Economic Commission. It has advisors, it has organizations that tell it, help it to formulate these regulations. They're passed down then to the country level. The big difference is that in the European Union, the implementation of what the European Commission says is much different than it is in the Eurasian Economic Union. In the European Union, the competence of the European Commission is such that they can check the authorities, those country authorities, on, they check the system, they check the principles, they check the implementation mechanisms. All those are proscribed in some way, but basically you're prescribing principles. And they check it, they audit, and that's an important issue for whether the rules and regulations get implemented or not. Now, in the Eurasian Economic Union, you don't have that degree of auditing, checking, surveillance. It's just not there. The Eurasian Economic Commission does not have the authority to do that. Now that, of course, means that there's, in my opinion, and I'm not the only person who thinks this, that there's less control over what goes on at the country. In other words, let's consider that I'm a food business operator, right? There's a regulation that comes from the central authorities, right? There's also a law in the country that says something different, right? The countries are not obliged to change their laws to be consistent with what comes out of the center. This is important because, you know, as a food business operator, what do I follow? I'm supposed to follow both. But if they're different, you know, it's very difficult. It creates a lot of confusion. And, you know, if I were a food business operator, I would throw up my hands and say, hey, what do I do? There are important implications for food trade in the region. And that is that you have two systems of food safety control. Once again, food safety control in commerce, in trade, is a very important issue. You cannot say that we don't need it. However, it means bureaucracy. It means cost. It takes away some of the national sovereignties of the countries in the economic union. There's no question that the European Commission has certain sovereignties that were formerly held in the governments, in the national governments. And of course, the governments, they sometimes say, oh, you have an overweening bureaucracy. You're taking away our sovereignty. Okay, perhaps this is true. That's the cost. But the benefits are that you have a system that really, really works. I think it's worth it because food safety, it increases trust. You increase trust, you increase incomes, you increase people's food security.